Hey everybody, welcome to the Talking Some Sens podcast. As always, alongside me, I have Chris Sinclair.
Bonjour.
How's it going today?
Doing well. Fantastic. It's been, despite the Sens hockey, it's been great. Talk about a roller coaster of emotions. Here we are. But otherwise, I'm great. Beautiful, sunny Sunday morning. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. The Sens hockey's been pretty depressing lately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as well as Chris, we're doing another collaboration episode this episode from the AZ Sports Guy YouTube channel and the Locked On Podcast Network, co-host of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. We've got Matthew Jacobson. How are you doing
How's it
today?
going there, bud?
Not too bad. Yourself?
It's early.
Yeah, it's very early. Before we get started, I want to thank you. I know I thanked you off recording, but you got to thank on recording. You know how it is. Thank you so much for taking the time to wake up early to come record with us today.
I'm just gonna keep it as headcanon. He heard I had 3 jobs. I was like, oh my god, he woke up on a Sunday.
And for the audio listeners at this point, I just want to describe, and we mentioned this off air, but just want to describe, I'm in an Ottawa Senators t-shirt. Jake is in his regular awesome garb with a nice little Stutzla hat on. You can see over his right shoulder, he has some banners, Alfie banner and a Chris Neal banner. That's all fine and dandy. But this Matthew Jacobson guy shows up to it.
He's nuts.
And in the backdrop, it's basically it looks like you're at the arena in Arizona. It is wild to see. There's jerseys. There's I can't remember what that logo is called. What
the Kachina?
Yeah, that logo. He's dressed. He basically the only thing he's missing is some sort of Arizona Coyotes face painting thing. And I bet he debated doing it, I'm sure. But I just wanted to shout that out. It is wild. It is. He looks great.
It's insane.
Actually, I don't think I've ever told this story. Do you know what this logo behind me is from? The big Kachina?
What's it from?
So it's actually from the old Coyotes weight room. They left it behind. It was sitting in I work at Glendale Arena. I was just sitting in one of the storages, and I was like, I'll be taking that. And then I just threw it up on the wall. Someone asked me if it was a fat head. I don't think it's a fat head, but it is the logo that was sitting up in their gym room.
That's awesome.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
Got some damage near the face, though. I'm a little sad about that.
I guess someone stepped on the logo.
Someone probably did, or they just kind of ripped it off because apparently it was a really ugly divorce, and I was a little mad that I didn't get called in a couple months early to come help clean up some of the signed pucks and jerseys and whatnot. So I'm still holding that a little personally.
No, it looks awesome though. It's even better that there's some sort of it's authentic, man. It wasn't like you just went into a store and bought it.
Mm-hmm.
You stole it, which is great.
And it has been my personal mission the entire time I've been working there. Anything with a Coyotes logo, I've just been taking, which they don't want it there anyway. So I'm actually doing a public service to them and then to my collection when I come back home. So I have way too much Coyotes stuff now.
I like how you frame that for yourself.
Public service. It's funny.
I'm just here to do good. I'm here to do good and take everything with a Kachina.
It's
in both our interests.
Mutually beneficial. There you go. I don't think I ever told that story before, so I think that's a Canadian exclusive now.
Oh boy, look at us! Already breaking news. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Also, let's say hi to the dog. By the way, that dog needs some pets.
Oh yeah,
yes.
True, yeah. Isaac with his special guest appearance on the show.
Very distinguished young gentleman. How you doing, Isaac?
Yeah. He's 90% ears. That's what I always tell people.
That's funny. Isaac's pretty much become the mascot of the Talking Some Sens podcast at this point.
That is a good idea.
Yeah,
put him on a hat. I'll buy it.
Don't say that too loudly, because otherwise he's going to start asking for paychecks.
Just give him a couple treats before he'll forget what a paycheck is.
Oh yeah, you're telling me. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get right on to the episode, though, just so we don't take too much of your time. The main reason, the first and foremost reason why we asked you to come on at this time of year specifically, is because on the 19th, so the day after we're going to be releasing this, we're going to be releasing this on Monday, December 18th. The day after, the Arizona Coyotes are facing the Ottawa Senators, and this will be Jacob Chikrin's first ever game back in Arizona since he was traded to the Ottawa Senators. So that's the main topic we want to talk about. But I've got a bunch of other questions surrounding the Arizona Coyotes, followed by a fun little game at the end.
All right.
If
it's like a game show type, I'm terrible at those, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, welcome to my life.
Yeah, no, I've started doing a couple games the past few episodes, and Chris loves it, but he also hates it because it's always a surprise. I never tell him what it is.
And sometimes he'll
keep
tell
your
me
cards close.
Yeah, sometimes he'll tell me what it is, and then at the last minute he'll not do what he said he was going to do. So I don't know the questions or anything, but at least I know the game. But then he'll switch the game last second, and now I'm winging. I'm probably going to wing this just like you will.
Sometimes I straight up lie to him.
Yeah,
I told you it was Wheel of Fortune. It's actually Jeopardy.
Yeah, this is much better for me. Much better. For
me. All right, let's get right into it. First and foremost, I want to talk about how good the Arizona Coyotes have been this year compared to last year. I know we talked a bit about it off cam, but at the current moment in time, they're somewhat in the fight for a wild card spot. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my God, this team frustrates me. So like they've been in a wild card spot. Like my prediction before the season was a week and a half. They'll be in the wild card spot. I think they've technically had it for like 2.5 weeks off and on, if not longer. They've found a way to stay in the playoff race despite ridiculous inconsistencies. These massive like swings of momentum. How good the offense has been. The defense has been a lot more fundamentally solid than last year. The goaltending, Connor Ingram. I don't even think I need to elaborate on that. And even though a little bit of inconsistency from Milka's still been decent this year, and then the offense dies, then it comes back to life. And it's such I can't project this team, so it frustrates me. But I have to keep reminding myself they're young. The rebuild is not over yet. They're not going to make the playoffs this year. But the fact that it's almost Christmas and they're still in the race, I can't complain. But I'm still going to complain.
Yeah, so I guess I'd like to know a little bit more. Like, obviously, there's so much to unpack there. But I would like to know, maybe selfishly, because he came to you from Ottawa, what do you think the impact has been from Andre Tourney? So, for anyone who doesn't know,
forgot about that.
Yeah, Tourney was the head coach of the Ottawa 67s prior to getting this gig with the Arizona Coyotes.
And before that, he was an assistant coach under Dave Cameron for the Senators as well. I'm pretty sure he ran power play.
Okay. Yeah. So, and there was a ton of success here in Ottawa, and it seems as though, at least from the outside, that he's actually been able to maybe turn this around a little bit quicker. But I'd love to hear your insights around Tourney.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you. I'm going to start with a couple of small things I don't like. Just because I remember when Jacob first talked to me about it, he's like, oh, you better take care of this coach. So I think it'd be funny to watch his reaction. I hate how he loves to go with the 11-7. I think it has a very short lifespan. There is success to it. I just don't think it's sustainable. So he favors that a little bit too much. And there was a situation recently where there wasn't enough practice time, and they kind of mishandled Pamelka a little bit, and it made it a little too rusty for the road trip. However, minus a couple of very minor things that everyone's going to make some mistakes, you criticize it, you move on. I think he's been phenomenal. He has the potential to be the best coach in Coyotes history. He's not there yet, but he has the potential to be. The fact that he's been able to reach the younger kids the way he has, his system is a lot better. Just comparing just the system under Talkett to him, the offense flows a lot more freely. On top of that, But I still think the lack of a captain is a slight weakness. However, I like his opinion of it has to be unanimous. You need that one voice to be that one unanimous voice. But everyone gets to be a leader to the extent they need to be. And there is some success there, just kind of with the 11-7 to a certain extent. But the defense has been a lot better. They've been able to revive careers for defensive players. The goaltending has been outstanding. I mean, Connor Ingram And I know it's not just Turnier, his staff, the people he's brought in some excellent assistant coaches and a really good system. But Connor Ingram went from the guy that, hey, isn't that the one that gave up 5 goals to the Coyotes in the last game in Glendale to, oh, wow, if he keeps this up, he'll be a Vezina contender. He'll be like a top 3 finalist if he keeps that up. So I could not say enough good things about what a phenomenal job Turnier has done with the culture, the system. Just players like Keller have thrived under him. Just another small comparison. The amount of 20 goal scorers, I think, has gone up like 200% or something from him, from talking to him. So I know it's just one metric, but there are so many things I can just gush about this guy. Right now is the wrong time to ask because they're on that mediocre thing, and I hate it because that's the part of the rebuild they're on. They're on the mediocre part.
But I think that one of the things that stands out to me about the Coyotes is that it doesn't. While I get that it might be a little bit frustrating at times to watch them, it doesn't really feel often like they're completely out of it, right? It's not like they're still. I mean, yeah, there have been certainly some ups and downs, but at least they're still relatively competitive, almost game in and game out, right?
Yeah,
Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, a lot more of the games are 1 or 2 goal losses where I haven't seen a 7-1 loss yet this season, at least not that unless I memory hold that one. Like the team is a lot more competitive. Even they go to Boston and they're not going to win that game. They haven't won a game in Boston since like 2009. They lost by 2 goals and one of them was an empty netter. Like they're competitive. They're a much better team. You're not getting those big blowouts. You're not getting those, oh, they're just a glorified AHL team. They're an actual legitimate team this year.
Yeah, and coming from the Senators' perspective, obviously we've been going through what's a rebuild for the past 6-7 years, and it's been bad to watch. But watching, and so I think this is part of the reason why I think about Tourney, right, and I think about his impact on the team, because it's never, like I said, it's never really felt like they're a rebuilding team, even though they have nice pieces. There aren't those like franchise, or well, maybe now with the rookies, but there aren't really those big names on the team, and yet they're still able to hang in tough, like you said, even against the Boston Bruins, right? So that's just something that really stood out to me so far this season.
Oh, I thought Jacob was going to jump right in there.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to unmute there. You alluded a little bit to it, but I wanted to talk about Connor Ingram, the emergence of Connor Ingram. I said it a bit off camera, but I've been rooting for Connor Ingram ever since the World Junior Days, where the tandem was him and Carter Hart. Wow, sorry, I butchered that. But it's really nice to see that Connor Ingram has seemed to find a home in Arizona, and I wanted to see what you thought maybe could be the part of the reason for that success.
I think a part of the reason might be down to coaching, because the fact that this team has a weird history of kind of diamonds in the rough and surprising, like with goaltenders they acquire via waivers or trades. They can't draft a goalie to save their lives, but they can sure develop another person's goalie. But it's actually interesting. I wanted to go ahead and just bring up to his stats real quick and try to flesh this out. He started off really cold last year, and it was really rough to watch. Obviously, it's a rebuilding team. Not like the team in front of him was that good, but the team was a hardworking team. Finishes the year with a 907 save percentage. This year so far, 4 shutouts, 911 save percentage, or a 923 save percentage, 3 shutouts. He almost maintained above a 930 for a while there. The defense has gotten a lot better, but that's not enough to describe just how much better he has gotten. And I'm not a goaltending guy, so like I definitely am not qualified to pick, oh, his positioning and his glove work. I'm like, nah, he's just better. He's just more consistent, and obviously he's going to give the credit to the guys in front of him, but I think he has the potential to be a Vezina finalist this season. Whether he wins it, I'm not going to try to make a bet there, but I think he can be a finalist because he's just been ridiculously good.
Amazing. Yeah. And I would just like, every time I see him play, it is unreal watching how, I'm much like you. I'm not a huge, like, I'm not a big goalie guy, but just watching him play, like he does have really good positioning. He's not just making, he's not just like happens to make a save. Like he's really reads the plays well. And that's something that I found from watching him over the past few seasons. That's something that I think clearly he put a lot of work into that this offseason, because he it's just like night and day from last season, right?
Yeah, he went from a really bad start to a strong finish, where I think last year he won the starting goaltending job, to this year where it's minus a couple of bad games, which it happens. You're going to get blown up a couple of times. Been consistently excellent, and in my opinion, won that starting job. Yeah, no, it's I think that kind of all speaks for itself.
Yeah. I want to switch things up for just a moment,
Mhm.
and I want to talk about the arena.
All right.
I'm sure that you saw this question coming a million miles away, but
I wasn't thinking about it, actually. I didn't prepare at all. I just
Oh,
woke up
good.
and got
Okay,
here.
good. I just assumed that everyone was like, yeah, okay, we play in Mullet Arena and blah, blah, blah. But I want to get your take, sort of before we get back into the players and all that sort of stuff. I want to get your take on the arena. All like part of it being, what's it been like to watch the team play in Mullet Arena? And then reports are indicating that they're potentially moving to Northeast Phoenix. And so what would you mean? What would that mean for the team, for the club, for the fans, all that sort of stuff?
Just gonna preface this. I do work at Mullet Arena, so there's a lot of stuff I can't like specifically mention. So I'm just gonna stick to just that opening night against Winnipeg. It's probably gonna be the best example I can come up with. It is such a unique atmosphere, and I much prefer ASU games. Actually, I highly recommend, if you guys can ever come down, go to an ASU game. The student section itself is ridiculous, and I really wish the Coyotes would have done a better job trying to market towards that. I think that was a failure on the Coyotes' part, but for the most part, you had a lot of strong Coyotes crowds. Last year, yeah, a lot of opposing crowds started coming in. And if I'm sitting in my shop, I can tell who scored because of the horn. Because if the opposing team scored, you can hear them cheering. So it's like down the stretch, when they're obviously a bad team, it's a little surprising to me that they were still being outdrawn in a handful of games by opposing team fans. This year, it's a lot different. This year, it's a lot closer to that opening night against Winnipeg. The team's been a lot better in feeding off the energy. And the fact that they still had plenty of energy to feed off from the Mullet Arena crowd last season, too, I think it just kind of speaks to the unique atmosphere Mullet that Mullet provides. But it's definitely, I am at the point now, especially after the no vote in Tempe, I've not changed my mind. I still love Mullet Arena. But once that no vote happened, I'm like, okay, well, obviously this was always supposed to be temporary. You got to get something else done, because you can't extend this that much longer. Like 5 years is pushing it if you want to extend 2 more years for construction. So, like, I love the atmosphere. I love the building. I love it more for ASU games and Coyotes games. But it's a fun place to watch hockey when there is another project. That other project is reportedly Northeast Phoenix. I had a little bit of info on it, but I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say that I did know. But it's the area is kind of around Desert Ridge. If anyone knows where that is, so you have the 51 will meet the 101, and then it kind of wraps around going to Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, and a couple of the other really well off areas. North Phoenix is also very well off. So any of those plots of land, most of them are owned by the state of Arizona. Any of those, I think, require an auction. You have to bid on them. But there are many private parcels. The ones south of the freeway by Mayo Clinic, all reports are right now they're not interested in selling those, but there are a couple of plots that equal about 40 acres that are owned by a private company behind the mall. I think the Vikings owner owns some of that land. Over to the west is another privately owned parcel. So there's plenty of parcels to work with. Right now, it's a lot of the plans should be relatively similar. Pretty much you already had the blueprints. It's just a lot of filing paperwork to get those through the city of Phoenix instead of the city of Tempe. But it comes down to the close. They have to close the deal. And the deal close is still not imminent. The announcement should be by January. They want it by the end of this year, but I'm going to assume January. And it's kind of one of those, I was super excited to see that we got the location. Now comes, you got to close it. And now my skepticism has come back.
And what would it mean for the club to actually to play in that area? Do you think that it would be beneficial? Obviously, hopefully, it would be beneficial. But do you think that it would be beneficial for the team to be playing in Northeast Phoenix, or somewhere else?
Well, it's definitely an upgrade over Glendale. And I'm a West Valley kid, so I'm not that far from the Glendale Arena. But obviously, the West Valley is more known as a bedroom community. Most of the money, the majority of the money is over in the east. So you wanna be in that side. Mesa or Tempe would have been perfect. The West Mesa location was not that far from Tempe, reportedly, so that would have also been a really good spot. But they're still on the 101 corridor. The vast majority of their season ticket holders are reportedly in Scottsdale. Their main practice facility is out of Scottsdale. Scottsdale is kind of the hub for the Coyotes. And also a lot of the money, but also there wasn't really a lot of opportunity that I heard to build in Scottsdale. So along that 101 corridor, it's a little further north than most of us would have liked, and I was a little shocked with how north they went. But if you go any further south, it would have either been on reserve land or I think there's some private parcels further down, but I'm not sure if those are for sale. So it's as good as it can be with West Mesa and Tempe off the table, reportedly. So it's not the greatest location. However, it's still accessible throughout most of the valley. It's much closer to their season ticket holder base. And I think it'll be overall beneficial, but I would have liked it in West Mesa. I think that would have been the perfect location.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you for your assessment on the arena. I know that at least from the outside, it's a little bit bizarre watching the team play in a 5,000 seat arena that's meant for university or whatever. But
Go Devils.
Yeah. Anyway, Jake, I'll throw it back to you.
Wasn't it Josh Stone that scored the first goal in Mullet history, or am I wrong about that?
Actually, if you watch the other Mullet Arena vlog on my channel, I believe it was Mason Walker because they had the women's team open up before the ASU men's team. So I think the exact order went: the first technical goal was Mason Walker for the women's team. The first actual goal was Josh Doan for the NCAA team, and then I think Kells got the first goal for the Coyotes. But that one I'm the most foggy on. That was a blur.
So yeah. So Mason Walker scored the first legit goal in the arena history, and Josh Doan was the first man to score in the arena. That's pretty cool.
Even though technically it would be Josh Doan because that's when the arena technically opened. So
yeah,
it just depends on what you consider.
Yeah, that's fair. So was that a women's game like a competitive game? Was it a school game? What kind of game was it? I don't know.
Well, I don't know if Canada has the equivalent. So you have obviously NCAA hockey, which is your main college hockey. Then you have club hockey, which is kind of technically related to the school, but all the players have to pay their own expenses and whatnot. And it's not technically the same, but they are a club team, D1 club team that hopefully will end up making that jump to NCAA. And they were playing GCU, and I don't hate GCU. I hate U of A, but GCU is not very good. So. There you go.
That's fair. Yeah. Anyways, let's get back to the team itself. Just because I mentioned goaltending, I want to piggyback a bit to it. Do you think that Corey Schwab, the goalie coach of the Arizona Coyotes, is an underrated goalie coach? Because I was looking at his career. After his playing career, obviously he was a goalie. He started out with the Tampa Bay Lightning as their goaltending coach. Then he made his way to the San Jose Sharks, and now he's obviously with the Arizona Coyotes since 2015-16. His first year with the Coyotes, their starting goaltender was Mike Smith, but Mike Smith was at 33 at that point. He's kind of starting to tail down, and ever since then, like there's been Mike Smith, there's been Darcy Kemper, there's been there's another one I'm forgetting for Aiden Hill, Antti Raanta, yes, Antti Raanta, Aiden Hill, and now. Connor Ingram and Carter Vizmelka. It's almost as if the last 5 years, the Arizona Coyotes have had some of the sneakiest great goaltending. Do you think Corey Schwab is a big part of that?
Well, I mean, logically, he has to be. I mean, the guy's in charge of the goaltending, but I mean, I don't know. I'll try to break it down from my Arizona perspective if I can take another 38 minutes of your time. So you have Mike Smith, who's obviously. I'm just going to say it right now. I'm not a big fan of Mike Smith, but I do have to recognize he is the winningest goaltender in the franchise's history, and he was a good NHL-level goaltender. Antti Raanta had a lot of injury issues, but despite that, he played the first year here ridiculously well. And even though he didn't play much the next couple of years, the numbers were still pretty decent. So you're getting decent numbers out of someone who's basically broken down. And I think they were kind of playing a little too much, but That's neither here nor there. You get Darcy Kemper, who was a career backup, finally gets that opportunity and runs with it, and did make that Vesna final kind of case. Also ended up stealing the Coyotes a playoff win against Colorado in a series that otherwise was not competitive whatsoever. Then you move over to Vejmelka and kind of Anson Thornton a little bit too, because these goaltenders, it's last year in Glendale, and they both come out of nowhere. Anson Thornton gets that ELC contract. Vejmelka gets a contract. He actually ends up getting a contract extension, wins the starting job out of a training camp. And while nothing against Carter Hutton, Carter Hutton was kind of brought in to be one of the goalies and ended up not even being a factor for the Coyotes. That's kind of how much better Vejmelka was that year. And then you get Ingram, who went from a guy that I had never heard of, that my joke was, yeah, he gave up 5 goals to the Coyotes in Glendale and let them come back and win. And maybe, I guess he was a double agent, just wanted to join the Coyotes. But he then started off, struggled a little bit. And there's an interview he did where I think his exact quote, but just take it as a paraphrase, was like, I knew I needed to get myself going or else I was going to lose my NHL spot. And considering how that just clicked and how it's carried over to this year, I think Sean Burke used to be a goaltending coach here. That would have been years and years ago.
Yes, he was.
Goaltending's
Yes.
been more consistently good now, and the team has been at least probably more consistently bad between the two. So not a shot at Sean Burke or anything, but I think that might be an example of just how much better Corey Schwab is at his job. And I think he has to be at least 70%, if not much higher, of the reason why the goaltending has been as good as it has.
I want to kind of get a bit of an idea as to, obviously from an Ottawa Senators perspective, because that's what we focus on here. I want to get your perspective on Jacob Chychrun. So he was drafted 16th overall by Arizona back in 2016. And he's been described as a defenseman who is an incredible toolbox and can make a difference at both ends of the ice. What do you think about that?
That's pretty accurate. He's also got a hell of a shot. Like that kid's slap shot is ridiculous. I like to throw some shade at Jacob Chychrun now because it entertains me. But seriously, he's a phenomenal offensive defenseman. His play in the defensive zone, I don't think is as good as, let's say, Yanis Mozer's, for example, but it's still solid. He's still a good defender. His positioning is still pretty solid. It's just toolbox. I don't think I've ever heard the term in relation to a goaltender. I've heard it for other positions, but I think that probably describes it pretty well. Two-way defender is what I would use. A little more offensive than defensive, I guess, but really solid player overall. And what he was, it 4 assists he had in the last handful of games, or 5 assists in the last handful of games?
Yeah. And I think we're starting to see. The reason that I asked this question, I mean, amongst many others, is that I know that obviously he came to Ottawa, and there was a lot of hype, and I know I was on that train. I was super excited. And the fact that we got him without actually having to trade a player, it was just picks. Obviously, there was some salary retention sort of things that held out the fact that there wasn't a player attached to that, because I know that Arizona didn't want to actually have to take back any salary or anything like that. But I think that obviously, as he only played, I think it was in 12 games last season before getting injured. This season, he hasn't been playing consistently to the level that we would have expected him to play at. But over the past few games, I think how you just described him is what we're starting to see. I think obviously he's on the ice for a lot of goals against, unfortunately. But as you pointed out, he's probably leans more offense than defense. But in the last game, he had an incredible sliding play to stop what was inevitably going to be a goal. It was beautiful. He timed it perfectly. He's definitely seen the puck a lot better in his own zone over the past few games. So that's kind of, I think, again, how you're describing him and how he has been described by scouting reports is maybe a little bit more of what we're starting to see now. Do you think that it could be just, he came home, a new system? What do you think? I know maybe it's unfair to kind of put you on the spot here, but what do you think may have been holding him back?
Oh no, I love being on my heels. Honestly, when you switch teams, even though I've never played hockey, or at least any like league hockey, you are switching a system. You're switching to new locations, switching to new teammates. You gotta gel with a whole new group of players, have a whole different role. So obviously that's going to have an impact on it. Obviously, him sitting a bit last year when they were trying to make sure he wouldn't get injured for a trade, and then him getting injured anyway. The amount of injuries this kid has suffered just is going to set you back. So it also could be, to an extent. I've only watched a couple of Ottawa games this year, and I do pay a little bit of attention when Chikrin's out there on the ice. It's entirely possible he also could just be playing a little more conservative earlier on in the season, and then he hits his groove. It's December right now. It's kind of where you want to start getting a little warmer. Could also make sense why now you're starting to see a little more of the offensive production, a little more of that diving, sliding, essentially save on what would have been a goal that you described. That's entirely possible. What it could be. It could just be that he's trying to make sure to pace himself out a little bit. I know guys that get injured a lot, they have to find a way to change what they're doing, but players are creatures of habit. So you essentially have to break years of habit if you want to do that. And it could be that, could be a new system, could be a mixture of any other circumstances, especially when you have a market that is a lot more passionate in terms of being vocal. So if Chikrin makes a bad play, he's going to hear about it in Ottawa, where in Arizona, they might not have, they might have been like, it's fine, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I tweeted this out last night as well. But fun fact: so according to Elite Prospects, Chikrin's actually this season is on pace currently for 16 goals, 49 assists for 65 points, which would mean he'd hit career highs in both assists and points. So, and it's in terms of assists, it's not even close compared to other seasons. So it's just like he is playing a lot better than I think he's getting the credit for. But yeah, I just thought that it'd be nice to be able to kind of get your thoughts, because obviously you saw him play for the first whatever that math is, 6 seasons or so of his career, something like that.
I was kind of in and out of hockey from around 2015 to 2018. But then 2018-19 is when I started watching every game and covering on my YouTube channel. So from then until 2023. So is that 5 years? 4 seasons, 5 years?
Something like that, yeah. I'm not a math guy.
Neither am I, even though my name's Matthew. It's a really weird name my mom picked there.
Jake, I'll throw it back to you if you have any follow-ups.
Yeah, I was going to talk about bring it back to Chikrin, like you were talking there. You were saying that he's on pace for 65 points, I think you said. I just wanted to give a bit of a summary of his time in Arizona and his time in Ottawa. So he was drafted in 2016, the sixth overall, I believe. And in 373 games with Arizona, he scored 60 goals, 110 assists, and 170 points before he was traded to the Senators. And I know for quite a while, Matt, actually, you were very, very high on him and hoping that he'd be the next captain. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that's not how things played out. But what was your whole opinion on that? I think it was 2-year drama where it was Chikrin going to be traded, was Chikrin going to stay, and what was your kind of opinion about that whole situation?
So I'll start with I think the account was Hockey Hound or something like that. They put out a tweet that reportedly he's on the trade block, and at that time, I think Bill Armstrong had said it, but this is years ago. It was like 2020, so a huge asterisk on that. Little things at this point are going to slip. But there was only 2 players that were untouchable, and it was Chikrin and Keller. And 100%. I did want Chikrin to be the next captain. I 100% was that high on him. The only reason I'm not that high on him now is because he's not on my team, not because he's a bad player or anything. It's literally just that you just got to focus on the players on your own team. But I remember that report, and we all laughed at it. And then what allegedly happened is that GMBA comes in. It's like, hey, we're going to go through another rebuild. If we understand if you don't want to be there for it. And Chikrin kind of hems and haws for a little bit, then decides, yeah, I want to be moved. So then you have in the middle of this so many injuries, and it's difficult to maintain the trade value for a guy like Chikrin with the injuries. And I think at some point my perspective shifted to being a little bit more cynical, just because he is a really good player. Unfortunately, he can't stay healthy, and if you want him as the future of your team, that's a concern. If you want to trade him and get the maximum value, that's a concern. So I kind of had to start thinking about him as more of just like a Coyotes asset than anything else. And then when the trade finally happens, I was super disappointed with the return until you're kind of like, you got to think about it from a couple of different perspectives. And it really wasn't that bad, but it's kind of a lot of disappointment. I'm going to describe it, me personally, a little bit of bitterness because I did see this guy as being the next captain. I don't see another guy currently in the locker room, minus maybe Jason Zucker, that I genuinely think could be the captain right now. So that's my personal perspective, is a little more of the kind of disbelief, then goes into, okay, just manage him like an asset type thing, to a little bit of bitterness, to now it's like, it is good to see him still succeeding in Ottawa. Like, he's not a bad guy or bad player whatsoever.
Yeah, it was quite interesting to see. He's gone through a lot of, I'm going to say, weird injuries,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just, I think his best asset, other than reading the game, is being able to shoot. And his biggest flaw in his game is not being available in terms of those injuries. Obviously, a lot of those injuries are non-preventable. I don't have a laundry list of his injuries, but he's missed so much time. And it was unfortunate. And so far, knock on wood, he's been pretty healthy in Ottawa. And he's been, in my opinion, Ottawa's second best defender behind Jake Sanderson.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been nice to see. It's been nice to see him evolve as a player, because obviously I've been a fan of Chikrin for a long, long time. He spends his off seasons in Arnprior, which is just outside of Ottawa, living
Mm-hmm.
with his grandpa and all that stuff. That's what he spends his off seasons. So I've had the opportunity to run into him once or twice in Arnprior. So I was always hoping he would find a way to come to Ottawa. And I remember I was actually at the gym when the trade broke. I was on the treadmill and I just got a ding on my phone, Chikrin to Ottawa. And I wrote an entire article about it running on the treadmill. I have no idea how I didn't fall. It was quite interesting.
You actually reminded me of something. This is a conversation
Oh,
I had with my old co-host on Desert Moon Hockey. So I don't really care to document the injuries so much, like the specific ones. I don't know why. I've just never liked documenting it. But I was told that he's had multiple knee surgeries, and I remember this was before the official like trade request type thing, although not trade request, but the official like trade discussions, but it was kind of around the rumor periods, or around 2020, 2021 in there. And my perspective on that was he's really good, really valuable. I would be, and my co-host's exact words were, I'd be weary on past the end of this contract, because of, he was explaining kind of the nature of those knee surgeries that he had, and how essentially they kind of wear out over time. So I think that might have been another one of the reasons why my opinion did have to kind of start switching to a little more of the asset management type, because when you have the kind of surgeries he's had, there are long-term concerns. Doesn't mean that he's not going to be a good player or anything, but there are long-term concerns. I think that was probably another factor why, and you just reminded me of that when you were talking about the injury history.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why this offseason Jacob Chikrin changed not just his diet, but also his workout routine. So he introduced a lot more yoga and Pilates, and sort of to kind of help with stretching and building those stronger muscles, probably primarily as a result of his knee surgeries and stuff like that, help strengthen his knees. And that's something that I think hopefully, knock on wood, hopefully we'll see that change this season and moving forward. Although, just to kind of quickly wrap it up, I do think this is pure speculation, obviously, but I do think that he does re-sign in Ottawa. I think this is where he wanted to be. Let's be honest, this is where he wanted to be the whole time. And I think that it makes a lot of sense. He loves to be able to play in front of his family, especially his grandfather, who he's very, very close with. And to be able to do that consistently, especially, moving forward, Ottawa will eventually get a new arena, and to be a part of that experience and sort of this next generation of Ottawa Senators hockey, I can't imagine that he'd want to play anywhere else. And I'm sure that Ottawa would be willing to re-sign him, maybe a little bit less than he's getting paid. I think he's 4.6 now.
yeah,
Although
4.6.
Yeah, I think that's fairly reasonable, but
He's getting more than that.
I don't think he would here in Ottawa. Like, I think he'll take a little bit of he'll trim a little bit of the fat off, just so to speak, just to kind of be able to stay here. But to kind of, again, Matt, thanks so much for taking some time on this Sunday morning to hang out with us and to chat some hockey. So we won't keep you too much longer.
I'll stay here for an hour if you want. 2 hours. I don't care. What else am I'm going to play Skyrim today, probably.
Good call. I love that game. I want to kind of get, so obviously when everyone hears this is going to be, or watches this is just going to be just before they play the Arizona Coyotes will play the Ottawa Senators. I want to kind of give the Ottawa Senators fans a bit of an idea as to what to expect from this team. I mean, that might be difficult because they've been kind of a roller coaster, but what are some of the things we should be watching out for and some of those players that we should be watching out for?
Ingram. You should be watching out for a goaltender that can absolutely shut you down or can give up. It's happened a couple of times, and give up like 2 or 3 goals in quick succession. So it's kind of expect a guy that is mostly an impenetrable wall unless you can get to him early. Maybe like a Brizgalov type, but maybe I'm also just a recency bias. I got a Brizgalov thing I'm working on. I definitely would say watch out for. I want to say watch out for Cooley, but they keep playing him on the 4th line with Liam O'Brien, and I think now they switch another guy on his wing, but he really should be playing with Kerfoot and Carcone. But that's a whole nother different conversation. But watch out for obviously the first line. Schmaltz and Keller have been ridiculous. They are a phenomenal pair. But if you can shut down the first line, there's not really much else. I mean, Zucker has a good engine on him. The Bukestad, Michelli, Kraus line is really good, but I also feel like they are kind of quiet or loud type, maybe not hot and cold, but quiet or loud. So it's a team that could score on you if you aren't paying attention. They're a team that they aren't as hardworking as last year, so that blue collar identity might be gone, but they're trying to replace it with a little more finesse. And you might look dumb on the replays, or they might score 1 goal the entire game. It's so hard to project this team.
So, and I really appreciate that you brought up Cooley. So, while I was doing some research, some crack research over here, me and my team, meaning my dog and I, the Athletic actually has, I believe this was last season, it was this season, has the Coyotes pipeline ranked 12th in the NHL with Logan Cooley as the top ranked prospect. What are your thoughts on their prospects? Now, you've kind of alluded to Cooley playing a little bit further down in the lineup, which is definitely a surprising move. I mean, I trust Tourigny knows what he's doing, but still, I would have had him higher up in that. But what are your thoughts on the prospects, and maybe specifically some of those prospects that Sens fans should be watching for come game time?
I just want to make a small comment on Tourigny on this. He was playing higher up in the lineup, and a lot of his issue was confidence in shooting. Excellent passer, but he a lot of the times on the power play, you'll watch him. He gets the puck. He immediately, within like a second, if that, throws it right back over to Keller or Schmaltz. And I think the solution would have been to just separate them on 2 different power play units, but keep him with capable NHL players. I don't know if they're going for the earn your minutes back type. I'm not sure. I'm not in the locker room, but I am questioning that one decision. Just I want to communicate that. But prospects, in terms of prospects, you only really have Cooley on the roster currently because Michelli, he's not a rookie anymore, and people already know how good the Finnish fettuccine is. But for the rest of the pipeline, Dylan Guenther has a phenomenal shot, and I'm a little shocked they haven't called him up when they had plenty of need with injuries. He's been phenomenal in Tucson, the leading point scorer. I think he's the leading goal scorer, but Josh Doan is actually, no, like Donor passed him because Donor has 11 goals in the year. He's looking a lot more like his dad now. Phenomenal young kid. So I wouldn't be surprised if they get calls up at some point. And then for the rest of the pipeline, some of the more interesting, Jeremy Langlois is really good defensively. Julian Lutz, I think he's in like I don't even remember the name of the league, but it's a league where you can't have him in the NHL games anymore. He has a phenomenal shot to where we've had like mock trades for like Noah Hannafin or whatever, and they'll throw Lutzy in there, I'd rather throw in Sam Lipkin. And college fans know how good Sam Lipkin has been. Him and his Quinnipiac team won the Natty last year, and they're ranked, I think, 8th currently. So he's a really good player, really good, important piece in that team. And I would still trade him over Lutzy because I watching him at the rookie camps, training camps, this kid's shot is ridiculous, and I want to see how that develops. You also have Daniil Boot, who's having a really good season. They obviously the Russian hockey where you have younger kids going up and down the different leagues. Dmitry Simashev has legitimate potential to be a number 1 defenseman. You could not the exact style of play, but you could probably just slot him into what Chikrin's spot would have been when he's fully developed if he hits his full potential. So there are so many kids, so many ridiculously good prospects, but a lot of them are kind of show me prospects. So I guess it makes sense why some might rank him a little lower, but I think that might be a little low for the Coyotes prospect pool.
Just to interject here, the funniest thing ever is Daniil Boo, who obviously hasn't played an NHL game yet, but say he plays a game next year, he will officially be the tallest player to ever play an NHL game, tied with Ottawa Senator, former Ottawa Senator Zdeno Chara.
He's 6'8", isn't he?
6'9".
6'9". Nice.
Yeah, nice. He grew
2 more years.
4 inches. Yeah, 2. That's right, 2 years. Yeah.
Did you hear this? So allegedly, the reports are weird on this. So reportedly, that 6'5" was from way before the draft. They just didn't I think it was up to a year old, but they didn't remeasure him for the draft. So people are like, oh, how did he grow 3 or 4 inches in a year? Apparently, that's what it was. Apparently,
interesting. That's interesting. Before I go on to a couple other questions I had, I'm going to take a really quick second to take a break to jump to a message from our sponsor, DraftKings, and we'll be right back. Bet the action on the ice with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code THPN. New customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on hockey. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. The crown is yours. Bonus bets expire 160 hours after issued. Got a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. Please play responsibly. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright 2023 NHL. All rights reserved. Back to the show. And we're back. Before I hopped on to a couple other things, I want to talk about some former Ottawa Senators that are currently playing the Arizona Coyotes. Before that, I want to say I want to thank one more time the Arizona Coyotes for supplementing the Ottawa Senators and basically being the Ottawa Senators' farm team. Kyle Turris, Jacob Chikrin.
One of those players did not work out here, and the other one. I like Turris. I kind of feel like I had a similar opinion with him and Peter Mueller. It genuinely felt like Gretzky was trying to turn them into him, and there is no other Wayne Gretzky. So you're not going to get anyone else to be Wayne Gretzky.
No, yeah, it's greatest player, one of, if not the greatest player of all time. That's a debate for another day, but he just wasn't the greatest coach.
No. It's kind of why my opinion's soured on Gretz. I have to just bite my tongue whenever the topic comes up because I have the bad blood from the coaching era.
That's fair. I've got my opinions on Gretzky as a player. He's definitely one of, if not the greatest, but I'll talk about that in another day.
Bring me on for that one so I can have a little bit of a roast session if we're doing the negatives.
Fair. We're going to jump into the actual players who currently play on the the Arizona Coyotes. Currently, there's Ottawa Senators super legend, jersey number retired, Zach Sanford.
How dare you talk about the Tucson Roadrunners legend like that? Oh, he's playing with Sanford. Thanks for reminding me. Cooley's playing with O'Brien and Sanford as of last game. Thank you. I forgot he was on the team.
Yeah, we understand that. That's for sure.
It wasn't good in Ottawa. And then there's Josh Brown, who currently is in Robodaw Island. I have no idea where he is. He's not in the NHL team. He's not in the injured reserve list, and he's also not in the AHL's list at all. Where is he?
So
I have
he
no
actually
idea.
has been playing. He's been surprisingly decent especially when they're doing the 11-7. He's getting a lot of minutes. I think now
Really,
that a
face-off
couple
is
of the guys have come back, he's back out of the lineup because he works best as your 7th D. He
Yeah.
is a decent defensive defenseman. Occasionally, he'll give you a good shot or two that someone could tip in. Maybe he scores it, but it's mostly. I didn't realize until I was down at ice level last year. He's a big dude that is just
Sure.
there to hit some people and play some decent defense every now and again.
I remember when Ottawa acquired him, and I was the dummy. I'll keep the word dummy. Who said, "This is Chabot's partner." That was one of my worst takes ever.
Well, I mean, in your defense, I would say I'm a big proponent of the Mark Mathot, Eric Carlson kind of pairing,
Yes,
right? So
that's
that's
why.
immediately when you said that, I was like, Chabot is more offense, Brown is more defense, so they'll complement each other.
Yeah.
But well, they didn't.
No.
Oh, a Keith Yandel's a Beanick McCulloch type.
Yeah, exactly
Offensive
like
guy,
that.
defensive guy.
Like that. Yeah. Sorry.
I gotta translate it to Arizona
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, like that. That's the best way to translate it. But Eric Carlson was a lot better than Keith Yandel.
Yep.
And
Yes.
Mark Mathot was better than the Nick McCulloch.
You shut your mouth. Beanick McCulloch is the greatest defensive defenseman to ever live, and I will stand by his number should be retired.
Yeah.
I will die on this hill.
Die on that hill. Yeah,
That's
what
a hot
Sean was gonna
take.
say. Yeah.
Hey, this is Nick McCulloch was Milan McCulloch's brother.
Yep.
Or is, I guess. They're not dead.
Well, yeah. Well, it was weird because I remember like Milan would always say Mahalik, and then Zabinic was just fine with McCulloch, and I was always confused. Like, so which is it? Like, it's not like they're unrelated. It's not like they're two people with the same name that
They're
aren't
brothers.
related. What is going on?
Yeah.
I don't know if Z was just quiet and said, "Fine, I'll be McCulloch."
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. A lot of defensive D men are like that. They'll just take it, whatever.
Whatever, fine. Yeah, McCulloch.
Milan McCulloch, the replacement to Danny Heatley.
Yeah.
I remember I wanted the Coyotes to trade for him, and they never did.
That would have been fun. Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna jump into a little bit of a game before I let you go because I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Take up more. I don't care.
I'm gonna hop into a game that we did with the Surge Cast just last week. I'm gonna go with a this or that Ottawa Senators versus the Arizona Coyotes edition, where I'm gonna be kind of a game master and I'll shoot you guys one player or the other player. So one team from the Senators, one team from the Arizona Coyotes. Who would you prefer on your team? And the parameter is going to be every player mentioned will be in their prime. One game in their prime, game 7, double overtime of the Stanley Cup final.
Oh, there's gonna be so many hot takes flying here. Let's do it.
Oh yeah,
there always are, and that's what makes this segment so great.
I'm gonna start off. Do I start off with my history one, or do I start off with a current one?
Do history.
Yeah,
history for 500, Tom.
All right, this or that. Shane Doan, Daniel Alfredson.
Donor. I would take Donor over Wayne Gretzky. I don't think you realize that man, like, not like religiously or anything, but like I would probably worship him as like a hockey player. Best dude ever. I'll take Donor over literally Wayne Gretzky and Gordie Howe.
Fair. You and I had that discussion about if Doan belonged in the Hockey Hall of Fame or not, but we'll save that for another time.
Yes.
What about you, Chris?
It has to be Alfredson, and I'm not just saying that because it's I love this when we pick players from the other team, but in this case I can't pick Doan. He's great, he's fantastic, great leader, but it's Alfredson all the way. Alfredson, absolutely was the heart and soul of this team for so many years, and the thrill of having him back in the organization now, even just in a front office role. You can see it from the fans. This means a lot to them. So he's a part of this community. He's lived here. Even when he retired, he lived here. And plus, I've met him a few times, and he is fantastic. He's such a nice guy. So, yeah. Alfie.
Next one's going to be a bit of a modern versus history. Again, each player we'll mention will be in their prime. It's the same parameter for every single player here.
Okay.
Brady Tkachuk, Keith Tkachuk.
Oh,
Give me Walt. I love the Tkachuks. A lot of people have a problem with Brady and Matthew. I love them both. Put them both in the Coyotes. Have them on either side of Jack McBain, and that's a phenomenal line. But, like, you can't tell. Like, Big Walt. I never got to watch him play for the Coyotes, but I watched him play for other teams. The dude was mean. He was a leader who wanted to win. And I think I'll have to double check this. I think he's the only Coyotes player who has 50 goals as a Coyote. So
yes,
I have to go Big Walt.
Yeah, I in this case, I think that Brady is going to get close to Keith's sort of persona and on ice attributes, but I have to go with Walt on this one as well. I have to go with, yeah.
See, based on the fact that Brady Tkachuk's on pace for 56 goals at the current moment in time, let's take a look at Keith Tkachuk's career high really quickly. I'm picking Brady Tkachuk simply to be different to you guys, but I just want to see if I'm right here in terms of Brady Tkachuk's 56 goals on pace would be higher than Keith Tkachuk's.
I want to be different, but I also want to make sure I'm right.
Otherwise,
I love you, Jake.
So in his first season with the Phoenix Coyotes, then in 1996-97, in 81 games played, he scored 52 goals and 34 assists for 86 points. That was his career high in goals. His career high in points total would be 98. Brady Tkachuk so far as high is 35 goals and 85 points, I believe, which was last year. Mm-hmm. But like I said, Brady Tkachuk is on pace for 56 goals in his 5th NHL season. And Keith's for 15 NHL, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He scored 50 goals and 98 points. So,
oh my God, history repeats itself.
It's similar. I'm gonna say it's a little bit of a similar trajectory, not the same by any means, but it's a little bit similar.
I agree.
And just to be different, I'm picking Brady. That's my captain, but I'm probably wrong.
Oh, captain, my captain.
Captain, my captain. Captain against captain.
Yeah. I'd watch that game.
Oh yeah. What Keith was the captain in Phoenix, wasn't he?
Yep. First ever Phoenix Coyotes captain, then Teppo, then Donor, then
Ollie. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Wow. That means Keith Tkachuk was captain of 3 different NHL teams, I think. Was he not? Because Winnipeg, Phoenix, and then I'm sure he was a captain in St. Louis for a bit. Was he not?
I think he was in St. Louis. I don't remember if he was in Winnipeg. I also don't remember how
he
played in Winnipeg before.
He was in Winnipeg. He got stripped because he wanted a long-term contract and he wanted to sign. So he wanted a short-term contract and he wanted to sign him to the longest possible one. He wanted like a 2-year contract. So he signed it and got stripped right away. Later on, he got re-given it back, but he got stripped. I hate that I know this. I hate that I know this. Yeah.
You're not a team player. You can't be my captain.
Yeah.
Jeez. The funniest thing is in the 2006 season, at the trade deadline, he was traded from St. Louis to Atlanta.
Yep.
And he immediately re-signs in St. Louis.
Immediately went back to St. Louis. I thought that was funny too. I need to hunt down an Atlanta Tkachuk jersey. If anyone can help me find that, at the AZ Sports Guy, let me know.
I would give away my signed Thrashers Danny Heatley jersey for that. I would.
I'll give you all those nameplates. Like,
there we go. That's a fair trade.
Yeah.
That you got. He says as if they gave them to him and he didn't just want to pick them up.
Yeah. I mean, you can't just leave stuff or anyway.
No, again, you're just doing your civic duty. I get it.
The next one, this one, I have to have you switching on this because if you don't switch, Matt, you're a homer.
All right, watch me be a homer.
First line center, Nick Schmaltz or Tim Stützle?
Stützle.
There we go.
Schmaltz is not a center. He's playing center again right now.
Yeah.
He's much more suited at the wing. Stützle is obviously you're wearing the hat going up in the 18th. It's funny. You had to have planned that, and if you didn't, I'm going to slap you. But no, Stützle is such a I don't get to watch much Ottawa. Whenever I do, it's Stützle.
I love Stützle. I love that. I call him the German toaster strudel. That's my nickname for him. I love that kid.
Then again, you call Chicker the Chicken Man, so
yes,
you got the interesting nicknames over here.
I'm also going Stützle on this. I have the Stützle t-shirt on right now, as I always do while recording. And I think that it was interesting to see his transition from the wing to center and see how quickly he picked it up. It's not an easy switch, but he was able to do it. And he was actually he was fairly effective right away, and he's only become better and better, and actually now surpassed Norris, who was expected to be our number one center. But the other thing to him, and I've mentioned this before, the other thing about him rather, and I've mentioned this before, is that it's his defensive game now. I found that his defense, he reads plays in his own zone so much more effectively, and he can be a game breaker just by the fact that he's committed to defense in all zones. And it's just incredible to watch him play. So that's something that's one of those things, like not only is his skill off the charts and it's only going to get better, but it's his defense. He's really worked on his defense, and it's incredible to watch him out there. He's no longer that liability that he has been in the past. So that's the big thing that stands out for me.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll add by no means is Tim Stützle the reincarnation of Patrice Bergeron. I hate that I said his name in English. Patrice Bergeron. I hate that I said that in English. But there's by no means is he the reincarnation of Patrice Bergeron. That's not what we're suggesting. But he's a legitimately capable two-way center at this point in the NHL career. I don't think he's going to win a Selke at any point in his career. But I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if he became one of those very responsible two-way guys who's underrated for the Selke, but not necessarily wins it.
Yeah.
Would you call him a Merrick Stone type, or remember he's pretty good defensive forward?
No, not even close. No, Mark Stone, in my opinion, right now is the best defensive forward in hockey. Mm-hmm. It sucks that he does not have anything like that to his name. I think that Mark Stone's the best, and I think that Tim Stützle is, while he's responsible in his own end, we can't put him in that same conversation now or maybe in the future. I think he's going to be one of the guys who's like B tier in that sense. Like the S tier, the S tier is everybody who wins it every year. A tier is guys who are close to the top 5 in the ballot, but not necessarily. But Tim Stützle is going to be the guy who's on the ballot occasionally.
That's still respectable, especially for how good he is offensively. Yeah, he had that much responsibility. That's respectable.
Yeah, I can get beyond that.
Now, next one. This one's a little tough because, unfortunately, Arizona's D-core is not that great yet. It's a work in progress. Mm-hmm. But we'll look at what I consider to be Arizona's number one defenseman, Matthew Dumba.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know. You
should have said JJ Mosier, man. You should have said your lookalike.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. You know what? Just because of that, we'll switch to JJ Moser.
Oh, easy dubs.
Yeah. Ottawa's number one defenseman, Jake Sanderson. Who do you take?
I have to take Moser, and I will explain exactly why. So my buddy Kyle Pereira, I usually do videos with him about the draft. He's a prospect guy, and he is very knowledgeable. And he told me how good defensively Moser was. No mention of the surprising amount of offensive upside, but it's more of like a bonus. It's not his actual forte. But I remember one game I was just watching him. I was just watching Moser and how ridiculously good his positioning is, how he reads the play, how he knows exactly where to put his body, his stick, how good he is. He is up there with a guy like Zbigniew McCulloch. I have to take Moser, but that doesn't mean that
I think you're wrong.
He is objectively better. I have to take Moser, though. I have to do it.
I think you're wrong.
Yeah,
that's fine. I could be wrong. I have to do it.
No, but you did say that you love a good hot take, so you nailed it on that one. Yeah, I said this when we spoke with the Surgecast crew, but same answer there is that it has to be Sanderson for me, and it's not only his elite skating, just like I said before, it's his gap control. You see it every game. He is if for a moment you think he's out of the play, he's right back in it, and he makes the play. He reads it well. The other thing too is that he's obviously a threat in every zone, and he's not afraid to activate in the offensive zone and actually get down low. And he's driving the net, and that's something for me watching a defenseman get into the play like that. It will automatically make me want to it's something that I gravitate towards it, and I love seeing it. And it stands out to me every time when he plays is that he will just jump into that play, and then if they lose it in the offensive zone, he's able to, with his skating, skate back again, gap control, and just get stick in the way, and then the play's going the other way, right? And he just calms the game down, and his hockey IQ is off the charts because he knows when to calm the play down. And you'll see him like he'll stand there with the puck, and then he'll go out, and he's a threat every time he's on the ice. So and that shot is just, Jake, you said it earlier. He's definitely their top defenseman.
Yeah,
if you would have kept in Dumba, it would have been Sanderson.
What did you say?
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
If you would have kept in Matt Dumba, it would have been Sanderson, and I would have probably said throw Dumba in the damn garbage bin.
Yeah.
He's been mediocre at his best this year.
Very good. Yeah. I don't know what's wrong with him this year.
I think it's just the injury.
Yeah, and
this is caught up to him.
Fuck, probably. It's also just not a system fit, probably too.
Could be because like he'll do a couple decent offensive things. He's not as good on the power play as you would have expected, but like he'll play decent defense until he doesn't, and there's just these weird turnovers, and it's like I don't know if he's playing hurt. I don't know if he's just not what he used to be. It really sucks to watch it because there's a lot of excitement for Dumbo because he was not a bad player, coming into this contract, but sometimes things happen.
Yeah, I know that there were a lot of Ottawa fans wanted the Sens to trade for him or sign him, and I'm very thrilled that they did the opposite.
Yeah, I like Dumba, but he would not have fit of Ottawa either.
No. He's got to find his game again.
Yeah, the thing with Dumba is he's being relied on as a number one D-man, and that's just not what he is. He's a good number 4, but that's it. He should be playing 20 to 22 minutes a night, and that's it. I don't know how much he's playing in Arizona, but obviously he's on the first pair, so I'm assuming he's going to be around 24 minutes.
Let me go ahead and look it up, actually.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate what's happened there. While you look that up, I'm going to bring up the fact that Michael Carcone right now on the third line is leading the team.
Ooh, bring it on. I love talking about Michael Carcone.
Yeah. He's interesting. He's a very interesting player. He's in my opinion, I think this is going to be a one-hit wonder type of season, but I'd love to be proven wrong because he's a very, very interesting player.
I can see why you'd say that because let me put this into perspective. 2021-22 plays 21 games, 4 goals, 2 assists, 6 points. Very definition of bottom 6 average. Mm-hmm. That is completely okay numbers, nothing spectacular. That's a fourth liner that comes in and out of the lineup. 22-23 only 9 games, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points, but he led the AHL. And it's at least I'd love to get your guys' perspective on this. My perspective on players that excel in minor league hockey is if you are above and beyond better than everyone else, you are likely good enough to be a good player at the next level. But if you're just really good at AHL, that doesn't mean you're going to be good at the NHL level. You might just be okay at best, or you might not make it. I think Carcone has been good enough to carve out that bottom 6 role for himself here. I just don't know why when he became a middle 6, top 6 guy due to injuries, he blew up the way he did. He's always been good as a depth guy. I did not expect what he's turned into this year. And I think he could maintain it, but it would depend on what is his role moving forward. Do they make a trade so they can keep him in the top 9, or is he just a bottom 6er? Because if he's mainly playing on that fourth line, he's not replicating those numbers next year.
Exactly, yeah. I think that it's quite interesting because I'm going to bring this back to the Senators really quickly by saying the Senators have posted a few videos lately of Zach McEwen, the team's worst player objectively, pulling some stuff off that like I can't do. Anybody of us can't do. He's doing some really cool stick tricks, and he did the Michigan the other day in practice, and it just goes to show that even what could be considered one of the worst players in the National Hockey League, he is so much better than any of us combined. So Michael Carcone definitely has skill as well. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the time is that players don't have the same level of hockey IQ as some of the guys in the top sixes do. So that's why they have to evolve their game into a more of a shutdown physical role. And Carcone is kind of benefiting from added ice time to what he's had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that he's definitely has the skills to keep this going for at least the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But the off season's long, especially when you don't make the playoffs. To say the Arizona Coyotes just missed the playoffs this year, because at the end of the day, they're a good team so far this year. They're just, in my opinion, not playoff worthy yet. It's still a work in progress.
Not there yet.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. It's a work in progress. It's a rebuild. I think that Michael Carcone is definitely going to be one of those guys you keep in the middle six. So ideally on the third line, on the second line in terms of injuries, a bit like how Connor Brown how I would have liked to have Connor Brown in the team on this tournament team at this current moment of time. Perfect third liner, good in the second line if need be. But I don't know if he keeps up this thing throughout the rest of his career, just because he's benefiting from this opportunity right now.
I mean, that's a fair argument because I can actually relate to him quite a bit. Any opportunities I get, I like to see myself as a very scrappy kind of, all right, give it to me and I'll try to run as far away as I can with it. And if he hits 30 goals this year, that's all I need, because I think he'd be the first 30 goal scorer in like a decade, if not like longer. We haven't had a 30 goal scorer in a while.
It's been a long time.
So that would be a fun little factoid. Who's most recent 30 goal scorer? But it's I'm pretty sure didn't Keller get it last year? I think Keller got it last year. I think I just spread misinformation on the internet. I'm so used to not having 30 goal scorers.
Let me double check here, because I know that it's my belief that Lawson Krause scored like 27 last year.
37 goals. He almost had 40 last year. Never mind. I got a little too carried away, and the Coyotes don't have good goal scoring. That was my apologies. I apologize, Keller and Tournier, for how good you guys have been. But no, it'd be a fun little moment for him. I think that he's still an NHL player. I think he could probably still, depending on where he's at, be around 20 goals. But that doesn't mean he will. That doesn't mean that it's a guarantee. There's no such thing as a guarantee. But if he could be like a 14, 15 goal scorer the rest of his career, no one's going to complain. That's good depth scoring on a third line player.
Exactly what you need out of the third line. An average third line player is going to score 10 to maybe 13 goals. A very, very, very good third liner is going to score 15 to 20. And I think that's what Carcone is going to be. He's going to be right in that middle where he's going to score 15 to maybe 17 goals a year.
Do you want to know Dumba's on ice time?
Yes, please.
All right. He's averaging so far this year 19 minutes 58 seconds, and I want to just go over like his last 5 games.
Less than I thought he would.
Well, the last 2 games he's averaging just below 20. He had 22. So last night 21 minutes 53 seconds. The night before 21 minutes 37 seconds. Then 18:47, 21:31, 14:48 against Boston. So they are using him on the first pairing more than they're not, or at least in the if you're getting the extra power play time. It's just, I feel like 18 might be the sweet spot. Like, get a little less time on the ice.
That's what he should be getting. 18 to maybe 22 at the most, because I think 22 is a high end top 4 guy, and anything more than 22 is a first pair, in my opinion. But I'm not a coach.
And it's a lot like to bring it kind of to Sens fans, it's much like the same argument with Thomas Chabot, where when Chabot was playing 27 minutes a night, obviously, in doing that over an extended period of time, he became less and less effective. But if you reduce his time, he actually becomes much more effective out on the ice. He's able to showcase his offense a lot better. So I'm wondering if that's going to be similar sort of situation for Dumba.
It could be. Some people, you see what they're doing. I'll always use Michael Carcone as an example. Some people, like, he excelled in the AHL level. You use him in a higher role in the NHL, you're going to get these results. Some people can do it for a little bit. Some people, they need that opportunity. Some, you want those 15 goals? Play me 10 minutes a night. You want those higher quality shifts? You don't want me to be out there as a defensive liability?
Daniel Sprong.
I think that might be like what Dumba is at this point of his career, which I feel like is an insult, and I'm not meaning it to be that way, but like sometimes some guys need to be limited, and then they're really effective.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. On that note, though, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just want to thank you so much. Unless Chris has anything to follow up with.
No, so I just want to, Matt, thanks again for coming on today and giving us a bit of a rundown as to what to expect for the Ottawa Senators in Arizona. I always want to say Phoenix, so it always.
I mean, they might technically be Phoenix again.
Yeah. But I just want to give you a chance to shout out, and where can people find you? What are you up to tell us about all that stuff?
All right. I have a lot more than I thought I would. So first and foremost, hello, my name is Matthew Jacobson. I am the AZ Sports Guy. I've been making content primarily about the Coyotes, sometimes the Arizona Rattlers, but that's not on that channel anymore. And I'm on Arena Football Talk for that, but that's a different sport. And ASU hockey. So go ahead and check that out on YouTube. I also host a podcast by myself that I'm trying to get off the ground, AZ State of Hockey. It's all things Arizona State Sun Devils hockey. I'm also the co-host of Locked On Coyotes. I'm starting to be a little bit impressed with my resume at this point. And at the AZ Sports Guy on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram, where, yes, a fat guy did get 100 followers. I am achieving in life.
That has to be the best resume I've ever heard in my life.
A lot better than I make videos in a closet. That was me in 2018.
Oh, I remember
a
those
notepad
days.
And my phone in a walk-in closet.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
I have the amazing privilege of being one of your first 20 subscribers, and I am taking that to the bank.
Oh man, you knew Matthew Jacobson? Who? Well, no, Jake's been like my younger brother since like 2018 or 2019.
Oh yeah, it's been a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, thanks again, Matt, for coming on, hanging out with us. Let's make sure we do this more often, even if we're just we're talking about whatever. This was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, if you want me to come and talk Senators, you got to give me like a week's notice so I can watch some Senators games.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I've got a couple of fun ideas.
Yeah, you don't have enough on your plate already, so we'll just give you a little bit more homework.
There you go. Yeah. Sundays tend to be the days I'm more available, so keep that in your back pocket.
Yeah. We'll do. So thanks so much, Matt.
No problem. Hey, I appreciate somebody wants to talk to me.
Of course, yeah.
This is a special breaking news edition of I just said Locked On. We were just talking about Marshall.
I know. I was going to say, but this is now great for the blooper reel. I was going to say, at least we literally just spoke to the Locked On Coyotes. So
yeah,
in your defense.
Yeah. All right, let's get that going. This is a breaking news edition of the Talking Some Sens podcast. You just finished listening to our interview with Matt Jacobson of the AZ Sports Guy channel and the Locked On Coyotes podcast. And now we've got some breaking news ahead of tonight's. It's tomorrow's matchup against the Arizona Coyotes. An hour and a half after hosting a practice this morning of the Ottawa Senators, DJ Smith and assistant coach Davis Payne have both been relieved of their duties. In their place, senior advisor in coaching, Jacques Martin, and unknown title, Daniel Albertson, have stepped in as both interim head coach and interim assistant coach. Before I say anything about this, what are your thoughts, Chris?
You know what? I'm gonna actually take a big step back here, and I think that this is an important thing to remember. So DJ Smith obviously has been relieved of his duties as head coach. But before we get into what this looks like moving forward, I actually want to take a moment and just highlight what he has done. Now, I know that's going to sound crazy. I know everyone's right now, myself included, riding high. Finally he's gone, especially if you've watched these past few games. I get that. But I think that it's important for us to take a step back and recognize and appreciate what he was able to do. Now, overall, his record, not great. Overall, he has I think it was a 464 points percentage, which is just not acceptable, especially over a 6-year span. But what I would say is, and I've said this numerous times, DJ did exactly what DJ was supposed to do. He was hired here not to, this is going to maybe sound ridiculous, but not to create a winning culture necessarily, but to develop these players. And he did that we can get into nuances if we want to, but at the end of the day, he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He was hired to develop these players, to get them through the rebuild. He also had to deal with a budget constraint, which was one of the worst in the entire league, arguably. Melnyk didn't want to spend on players. He was very focused on a budget. DJ did the best he could with what he had, but at the end of the day, he was able to develop the core of this team for years to come. But he was never intended to be the long-term coach. He was never intended to be the coach for the playoffs, for a winning culture. He was here for a reason. He did what he was supposed to do, and I appreciate everything that he was able to do. Now we can get into, what does this look like moving forward? But I was happy with what he was able to do, even despite or in spite of my frustrations and the amount of gray hairs I have grown in the 6 years since he took over.
Well, I'll piggyback off of that and say I've been plucking gray hairs out of my hair and beard for the last 3-4 years, and I'm just going to blame that on DJ Smith.
Yeah, it's
not
about aging. It's DJ Smith. Although he helped age us for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I've got a wild card here. I'm only 21 and I'm already plucking grays, so it has to be DJ Smith related.
Yeah, once you cross the threshold of 30, like myself, I'm in my mid 30s, and it happens way more frequently than you'd like to admit.
No way you're a day younger than 50. I'm joking.
That was the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
I'm just teasing you. But yeah, to bring it back to numbers, DJ Smith was the second longest tenured coach in Ottawa Senators history, and he was one of only 2 coaches to coach for 5 or more seasons while with Ottawa. In 5 years and 317 games as the Ottawa Senators head coach, he amassed 131 wins, 154 losses, and 32 overtime losses. And that brings up to what Chris said earlier, a 464 points percentage. And the guy who's replacing him is, funny enough, the longest serving head coach in team history, who's going to continue that tenure tonight. Right, as of right now, Jacques Martin, while he's only serving as an interim head coach, you could definitely see this as a bit of a interview, I guess, for the legitimate spot heading into next year. But we'll talk about that at a later date. Jacques Martin, in 9 seasons and 692 games coached behind the Ottawa Senators bench, won 341 games, lost 335, had 96 ties, which don't exist anymore, and 20 overtime losses for a 577 points percentage, which puts him at third all time in points percentage. Well, I'll really say second because the guy ahead of him was an interim coach. That doesn't count. The only guy ahead of him was Brian Murray, but he was coach for 3 years. So, yeah. Jacques Martin is probably the best head coach in Sens history, not named Brian Murray. I know Martin accomplished more, but I'll still put Murray ahead of him just because of the teams he coached and everything of that. But Jacques Martin obviously is the best alive former coach, so that's probably why they picked him. And with him living so close to the Ottawa area and him working as a consultant with Kingston and Frontenacs of the OHL last year, he's been close to the Senators for the last few years, and it just makes sense to bring in somebody who knows the team, because obviously usually when you bring in a coach, if you look at Chris Knobloch of the Edmonton Oilers, he didn't seem to be able to speak to what the team was doing right away, which is not his fault in any way, shape, or form. He was coaching a different team, so he didn't have time to look at players from a literal different league. He was coaching in the AHL, and now he's coaching in the NHL, while Jacques Martin has been seen at games for a long, long time. So he knows the players on the team. He knows their strengths. He knows their weaknesses. And hopefully he'll be able to give us what DJ Smith was not able to. Smith, while he is considered a defensive coach, I said it very loosely, that's what he's known for. His defensive structure was basically non-existent, and that's the exact opposite of Jacques Martin. Not to put too much emphasis on our group chat we have for the podcast. Chris and I have a bit of an unofficial drinking game. Neither of us really drink. I have the occasional drink every now and then. Chris drinks not often. But we have a hypothetical drinking game of every single time we say the words defensive structure breakdown. So I go. Chris says it, and I go out of my water bottle.
Yeah.
Some cases it's a little heavier, but whatever.
Yeah. I agree.
I'll throw it back to you for a second.
Yeah. So you make great points. The only thing I would say is I would arguably, Jacques Martin is the best head coach in franchise history. I know that you had mentioned Brian Murray, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for. I don't want to take away from him, but I would say based off of where the team was when Martin came over from Colorado to where he left it, was in a much better spot than when Brian Murray took it over and took them to where they did. Yes, Murray obviously had more success because under Murray, they actually went to the finals, and Martin wasn't able to do that. But the program and the system and the structure, there it is, that he put in place made a difference and impacted positively what Murray was able to do. Otherwise, at the end of the day, this is, I mean, Jake, you called this a long time ago. You had mentioned, and I'll absolutely take credit for this for anyone who wants to, but you, in all fairness, you had mentioned this a long time ago around when you saw the Murray hiring, rest in peace, the Martin hiring, you were the first one who had mentioned, at least to me, that you saw that as a logical step towards an interim head coach. And then let's be honest, he's 71. He probably won't want to be a head coach. It's just too much. There's too much of a commitment there. I think being an advisor, being, in management is probably where I would see him fitting better. But regardless, you were the one who had mentioned, again, to me, that it made sense for Martin to be hired as an advisor, so that when the day came in which they were looking at removing DJ Smith as head coach, he would be able to seamlessly slide in there. And then when we're talking about things like stability, which is something both Staios and Andlauer have been, screaming from the rafters, so to speak, that creates that stability, because it's not that they're going outside the organization. It's not that they're promoting, Bell from the Belleville Senators or whomever. It's they literally already have somebody in place. Like, they just have to slide them into place, stable, very knowledgeable about the organization. He's been, you had mentioned that he was with the Kingston Frontenacs for a little while there. But he's also been doing radio hits for TSN 1200 I think it's every Wednesday for a number of weeks, a couple of months at least now. So he knows this organization. He knows the players. He just needed a chance to see them firsthand. He's now had a chance to see them firsthand more consistently than he was prior. And now he's able to be able to provide some sort of assessment as to what needs to change. Step one, relieve DJ Smith of his duties. Whether he planned on going to that space or not, I don't know. But I would say this is ultimately an incredible move for the organization. When we talk about defense, which has been their opportunity, there's no one better than especially when we talk about bringing the organization back to its roots, bringing it back to its glory. These are those moves that connect with the community, that connect with the fans. And, what was it? We're looking at less than 24 hours ago, we were screaming at our TVs, if we were fortunate enough to see that game live, we were screaming in person about the frustrations that we have about this team. And now we're all screaming with joy. This is such a positive move for the organization moving forward. And that's even if Martin doesn't stay on as a head coach, which again, I don't think he will. he'll move back into management. But also having Alfie back there, that's something we haven't really touched on. Not to say, yes, he's 2-0. Not to say, I don't know that it's great. I love a winning record, and Ottawa needs one of those at some point. So we'll take it. But the way that he's able to connect with these players, the way that he has lived here, even when he was in Detroit, he was still living in Ottawa. This has been home base for him for years. He loves this city. He loves this team. For him to be back involved with the team, that's one thing. That's great. But to have him be able to work directly with the players, we saw him working with Shane Pinto the other day. He's at the rink all the time. He's engaged with these players. This is so inspiring for this team. This was absolutely, I'll give you credit, absolutely your call. And this happened, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago when
about that 3-ish weeks ago, maybe 4.
Yeah. Like, you called it. It played out exactly the way that you thought it would. And this, I'm super excited. I'm super excited. Martin, Alfie, they make their debut at the time of this recording tomorrow against Arizona. And the other thing to note is Capuano is still a part of this coaching staff. Bruce Garriock has reported that he will stay on, at least for this time being, and he's been given the opportunity to let the organization know what he wants to do moving forward. I know that there have been a number of teams in the past who are looking for head coaching roles, and his name has come up. So that
Buffalo specifically.
Yes, yeah, and that's something that we'll see moving forward. But yeah, sorry, Jake.
On that note, sorry, I will interject here. With DJ Smith being the 4th head coach fired this season, and rumblings potentially about Don Granato, there's a very good chance that Jack Capuano's decision might be contingent on what the Sabres do with Granato, because Capuano was basically a lock-in for that job before they hired him.
Yeah, great call. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's for anyone who doesn't know, Buffalo was asked Ottawa for their permission to interview Capuano. Ottawa declined that, which was sort of a protocol for them. It's not for the league. Usually that's okay, but for
Ottawa,
actually,
I will bump in. Most teams, they stop that stuff happening mid-season. So it's not really a not NHL thing. It's kind of like an unofficial thing that all NHL teams do. Usually, if people want to hire a coach from a team, they don't want that happen during the season, just to avoid any secrets being shared and all that. So that's usually an off-season thing. But I'll let you keep going. Sorry for interrupting you again.
No, that's fair. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Sorry for misspeaking there. But this is it would totally make sense if Granato goes that. This would be round 2, and Capuano likely wanted that gig the first time around. So it would make sense if he were to leave. And I think, this is one of those things that the organization we're going to start as fans starting to see more and more often, is that this organization is going to be more open to those sorts of things, because it isn't so much now. Yes, it's always going to be about a budget. Obviously, that's what has to come into place or into play. But I think we're going to start seeing an organization which is more open to these sorts of moves, and to be able to allow their coaches, if they have a great opportunity, go explore that opportunity, just keep us in the loop sort of thing. So I think, not to get off the rails too much, but I would expect if Granato is gone, Capuano would leave the Ottawa organization, which, with all due respect, didn't like the hiring to start out with. So I would be totally fine if that happened. But regardless, big picture, a big day for the organization, especially coming off that terrible loss. I mean, which loss are we talking about? Which is a valid follow-up question. But the Vegas loss, that was terrible. The team, when you watch the team on the bench, we've talked about it before on the pod, but when you watch the team on that bench, there's no one on that bench, and it starts with the head coach, but there's no one on that bench who's trying to inspire the team to take hey, listen, that was not a great shift. We're going to be fine. Let's, forget about that shift, move to the next shift. Let's get back out there. Let's do our thing, and helping them to regain their confidence. Yes, it's about the players. The players need to do that as well. But in my opinion, it does start with the head coach, and it trickles down from there to the players, and instilling that confidence, instilling that structure. There it is again. And but yeah, it's to see him gone again, with all due respect, this was the right move. This was absolutely the right move. And I am so thrilled. I saw that message and I jumped off my couch, this very couch. I jumped off this thing and I screamed and I was like, yes, it's finally happened. This is long overdue. I've spoken too much, Jake. Let's throw it back to you.
All good. I'm on the same boat where I was just listening to the pod, literally about to just export it and publish it for today, and I'm just sitting here playing NHL on my Xbox and listening to the pod, make sure it's good. Then I get a buzz on my phone. DJ Smith is gone. My legs kick back. I fall, smack my head off the ground, off the ceramic floor here. I scream bloody murder. I'm so happy that DJ Smith's gone. I get up. I run into my brick wall. My brick wall. I fell out. But it was definitely worth it. My nose is probably broken.
But it's totally worth it. And every Sens fan is going to say, you know what? I'd break my nose for the Sens to make this change. So, we can take the positives. We can say, thanks, DJ, for everything you did. And I think that's valid. But I think, moving forward, this is incredible. This is an incredible day for this organization to have those two behind the bench. Just think about it. It's crazy. Martin coached Alfie, and now they're both on the same coaching staff. Again, not for any other organization, but
for the Senators.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's something. Let's celebrate that.
My thought process is similar to yours when you said that he's going to finish out the year and probably not return as a coach in terms of Jacques Martin. He's just going to finish out the year, let bygones be bygones. And he's probably going to move on to an advisor role in the front office, as he should. Yeah. What I think is going to end up happening is what Jacques Martin's future role after this season is done. I think he's going to serve as an advisor to the general manager with the coaching situation. So I think he's going to be a bit of a buffer between whoever is going to be the next general manager to whoever is going to be the next head coach. I think there's going to be that guy in between, which is going to be Martin, who's going to facilitate conversations between those parties and making it a bit easier to make things work, because a lot of general managers don't necessarily have that coaching experience. Like if you look at Pierre Dorion, he's a scout background. If you look at Brian Murray, he was a coach. If you look at the guys before him, there's so many guys throughout the NHL don't have necessarily a coaching background. So I think it's important for a buffer to be had, especially with a lot of guys now who haven't necessarily played NHL level hockey to necessarily know the dynamics between the player and the coaches and the general manager and the coach. So kind of have a buffer there. I think that Martin is going to be definitely part of the process of hiring the next head coach, should he not want the role himself. Obviously, he's 71 years old, and logistically, it'd make more sense for him to not be a long-term head coach. If he wanted to, awesome. If it works out and the Senators make the playoffs and he wants to retain that role, awesome. Sure, whatever. But if he doesn't want to hold that role, I would not blame him whatsoever. And I think he's going to be part of the search committee to that next coach. When it comes to Daniel Alfredsson, I will say this really quickly. I love Alfie, but I'm incredibly worried because I do not want him in a role that he can be fired in. I love Daniel Alfredsson, and I do not want to be the fan that has to say, I don't like Alfie anymore. I don't like what he's doing as a coach. I do not want to turn on Alfie because of every single coach eventually gets fired. And I don't want that to happen with Alfie. He's a Senators legend, and I want him to remain a Senators legend.
You absolutely nailed it. So I love that assessment. I think I absolutely agree. Obviously we agreed on Martin probably not going beyond this season. And I think that's fair. But moving into that advisory role, I love the idea of having him available to look at potential coaching candidates. I think that totally makes sense. I think especially senior advisor to the coaching staff. I think that would totally make sense, although I don't know that that's necessarily now the role that he'll have moving forward, but regardless. But I also think, I also really appreciate your take on Alfie. That's why I wonder if Alfie is also thinking about it the same way, where he wants to work with the players. He wants to be a part of that. But I wonder if he would be more willing to kind of, I don't know what the hybrid role would be, but he'd be front office. But, Jake knows.
Sorry, I just got an idea there. I was wondering maybe I wrote a bit about it a while ago. I have to find it. I think what would make sense for Alfie is kind of serve in a bit, like you said, a hybrid role where his official title would be senior advisor to hockey operations, but his day-to-day role would go to revolving around meetings with the hockey operations. So Steve Staios, whoever next general manager is going to be, the coaching staff, like kind of serve as an advisor in that role, but also serve as a bit of a skills coach because he spent a lot of time with Shane Pinto. We spent a lot of time with so many different players, Claude Giroux, Tim Stützle, Jake Patterson, all those guys. The side practice to help figure out different things, playing keep away of Zub. I think that's kind of the role that he wants. I think it makes sense for him to be an advisor type of thing. And
Well,
that's not necessarily be a GM or anything like that, like the big fancy job, but it's a way to keep him involved in day-to-day operations and around the players as well. Because at the end of the day, the GM doesn't see the players every day. Especially if we look at the last iteration of the general manager, Pierre Dorion, he never came down to talk to the players. It was a very rare occurrence. And when he did, he was just giving them trouble.
Yeah, and I think that just to kind of great assessment there, and to just kind of finish off my point is just that I don't to kind of echo what you were saying, where you don't want to essentially dislike Alfie, who's a legend. It's the same sort of thing with when Gretzky. To kind of tie it into our episode with Locked On Coyotes, it's like when Gretzky became a head coach, right? You don't want to end up hiring arguably one of the greatest players in NHL history to then ultimately have to fire them at some point, right? So I would say the same thing happens here. And that's why I think that the organization would want to be super protective. It's taken us so long to get Alfie back into the organization on a full-time role. So I would only assume that they'd want to be really protective of ensuring that when he does whatever role he is officially given, that is something that isn't just an assistant coach or something like that. It's that he has more of a front office role, which would require more than just the GM saying you're gone, you're relieved of your duties. It's like ownership would have to get involved in that sort of decision. That's kind of where I see him. So I see him being an integral part of this this organization moving forward. So he's got to find a role that he won't get fired from. Not to say that he would. That's not what I'm saying.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
It's I echo what I'm saying. Like, we just want to be protective of our favorite player of all time, and it makes sense.
Yeah,
at the end of the day, the team is going to decide what's best for the team, and that's what's going to end up happening. I just hope it's in a role that we're not going to grow to hate Alfie. That's all I care about, really.
I agree.
I don't want to take too much long talking about this role because, like I said, it's an interim role. It's going to play for the end of the season, so I'm not going to take too much time there. I will say I'm going to do some research for future podcasts highlighting potential coaching candidates, but that's going to be at a later date.
Yep.
And my final point, and I'll throw it back to you, is that I'm very surprised at the timing because in the sense that DJ Smith held a practice today, and then basically an hour and a half later he was let go. I'm very, very curious as to how that played out. Like I said, it's definitely the right move. I just don't agree with how it was made done in that sense. You would have thought it'd be before the practice or maybe last night after the game ended or whatever. But I'm not the general manager. That's not my call. And my real last point is that let's remember DJ Smith as a person instead of a head coach. I seen a tweet of Brian Fraser's brother. Brian Fraser, I forget it. I think it was Rich. Yeah, Richard Fraser. He's the brother of Brian Fraser. Brian Fraser was a CFRA producer for a number of years and unfortunately lost his battle to leukemia just a couple of years ago. I believe it was 2019, 2020, something along those lines. And back in 2019, when Brian was diagnosed with leukemia, there was a series of tweets about how the team basically surprised him in meeting the entire team and all this stuff. And it really goes to show that while DJ Smith probably not the guy to be the head coach of the Ottawa Senators, he's a very, very amazing person, has got a good heart, and just cares so much about the people around him and what he can do to make them better persons. So that's going to be it for me. I just want to thank DJ Smith for the years of service he's done in Ottawa. He's the second longest tenured coach in Ottawa history, and while it ended poorly, I want to try to end off on a bit of a happier note. So good luck to DJ Smith at whatever he's doing next, because he's going to get a job elsewhere, probably as an assistant coach, but he's going to get a job elsewhere. So thank you, DJ Smith. You did what you could do. You helped develop Brady Tkachuk. You helped develop Tim Stützle. You helped develop Jake Sanderson, all of those guys. And they're better players because of the role you played in their career. So thank you, DJ Smith. And I'll pass it along to Chris, but that's it for me.
Yeah, so I guess just before we end off, also remember that DJ Smith was someone who was really integral with the fundraiser for Bob Jones, who's been diagnosed with ALS. He was super integral in the success of that and organizing that. And so I think to echo your point, yeah, we may be frustrated as fans to see this play, to see the play on the ice, to see this coach, and to be frustrated with this coach. But also think about the fact, from that perspective, it's we can talk all day about stats. On November the 10th, they had a 41% chance, the Sens, of making the playoffs. Now they're down to 11% chance of making the playoffs, and that's
LP.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess, yeah, if we're looking, great job. I didn't even pick up on that. So if we're looking for a silver lining, at least there's that. We can talk about those stats all day long, but again, as I started, thank you. I think it makes sense to bookend this with just saying thanks to everything that DJ Smith was able to do for this organization, for the not just on the ice, but off the ice. And I think the off the ice stuff really defines who he is as a human being. And we have to think about the fact that he is, now he's out of a job, right? And it's not an easy time. But I will say, though, in spite of all of those things, I am very excited about what this next, I'm going to say period, I guess, or next, I don't want to say era, because it feels like era is too long. This next block or chunk of time for the Ottawa Senators is going to be a really exciting one. To see Jacques Martin back behind the bench of the Ottawa Senators, it brings me back to when I first started watching the Ottawa Senators play, and that's something that's super nostalgic for me. So I'm incredibly excited about this opportunity. So with that being said, I think at this point we've spoken for a bunch of time. We've shared our opinions. I think it's time to wrap things up, is it not? Yeah, let's wrap this up and just say thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate your time. Would love to hear your thoughts. Make sure to follow us at Some Sens on Twitter. We're super active there. Would love to hear your opinions on this most recent move, I guess we can say. Firing. Let's just call it what it is. But super excited to connect with all of you. So thank you so much for this. Looking forward to the next episode.
Before I get my original tagline, I will finish off with saying, sorry, just one tweet came up. The Ottawa Senators interim GM and president of hockey operations, Steve Staios, will be available to media via Zoom at 5:00. No mention of Jacques Martin or Dana Offitson being part of this Zoom, but we'll never know. This episode is going to be up. This episode is going to be uploaded before this happens. We're definitely going to recoup this at our next episode. But on that note, we're ending off with a very, very go Sens go.